Have you ever permanently stopped talking to an immediate family member? What happened? My brother, my wife and I had separated for a period, but we were working on mending our relationship. My wife went to the bar with my sister for her birthday and my brother spent the entire night trying to talk her into fricking him. I don't get siblings like this. I think of my brother-in-law as my brother and consider that almost incest. Not saying it is, but that's how WTF I think it is. Yes, my cousin sells all kinds of alternative medicine that he passionately believes in. He honestly believes that he can cure anything with colloidal silver, sleep apnea, you name it. I refused his treatment in favor of actual medical treatment, and he would never leave it alone. I asked him finally to quit needling me about it every time I saw him, and he was so offended he completely cut off contact and I haven't spoken to him since. I haven't spoken to my older brother in over 3 years. He is a felon evading several warrants for who even knows what at this point, in a different state that seems to change monthly. Left his kids and ex-wife behind. He is and has always been a master of lying. His claims to have served in the army, he alters his online age to make it appear that he would have been of age to serve during wartime. He has done a ton of research, read biographies to seem legit, and tells everyone he was a sniper with a bunch of confirmed kills. Mum says he actually went to basic for like 2 weeks and was unable to cope, follow orders, so they sent him home to be a 5-star chef who studied under some fancy French dude. To have obtained a couple of master's degrees. No one in my family can recall him ever going to college. The list really does go on. He lies about everything. He is addicted to anything he can get his hands on. Last time he was home he got a DUI in my grandma's car. And when my other big brother passed away 2 years ago, he couldn't even be bothered to show up at the funeral. So yeah, he's only tried to call twice, but frick man, I can't let that into my life. My aunt, who was really close to my sister and I, her husband died and she spiraled into abusing Ambien and alcohol, and that led to him. We were all trying to keep a relationship with her and help her, but it was toxic. She'd steal things from our home because she had a key. One day she knocked on our door, and my mom answered and she hit my mom. I haven't spoken to my physically, verbally, mentally abusive father in almost 3 years, and because some of my siblings live with him I haven't been able to see them either. I have him blocked practically everywhere, so the only way he ever contacts me is through mail. About a year ago he sent me a photo album with pictures of all my siblings. It would have been sweet if I didn't know he was just trying to manipulate me. I'm in the exact same situation with my mother. Manipulative parents will use exactly what they know will hurt you. It's not surprising that that can often be their other children. It's a comfort to know your siblings be older with their own physical or social media presence before you know it, and contact can begin again on your terms. The last time I talked to my mother was when she phoned me to say she found out about my depression and that I was on medication for it. I hid it from her because I knew she didn't like medication and doesn't believe in mental health issues. Instead of being supportive, she proceeded to tell me depression isn't real, to just grow a backbone, and that I was just feeling sorry for myself. I hung up the phone and haven't talked to her since. She still texts me from time to time and I read every one. I can't bring myself to block her number. I have stopped talking to multiple family members, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. You think that letting go of someone is going to be hurt, but then you find out you'll hurt far less without them around. I'm old. I have one brother left. Pretty much all our adult life he treated me like crap. He borrowed money and never paid it back. He didn't come to see my mom or our other brother when they were deathly ill. Nor did he attend their funerals. About 10 years ago he asked for part of my liver for a transplant because he had hepatitis from long ago drug use. I told him no, at my age I'm not going under the knife. Now our communication is that he texts me happy birthday and I do the same to him. That's the total extent of our communication for the past 10 years. My mom has 5 siblings, but I thought she had 4 siblings until I was about 8 or 9 years old. She actually has a sister that nobody talks to anymore. I think my grandparents occasionally email her, but they all cut the sister out of their lives because she got heavily into drugs. My mom never specified, but I suspect it was MRH. She started stealing from family members too. I think that more was going on, but I never ask about her. I know my grandparents spent a lot of money trying to rehabilitate her, but it never seemed to help. I've met her twice. The first time was when I was 8 or 9 and my mom decided to extend an olive branch and invite her to Easter dinner. I vividly remember my mom telling me to go in my room and hide my Powerpuff Girl wallet. It didn't occur to me until I was much older how messed up it was that I had to hide my wallet from my own aunt. I learned later that my mom caught my aunt trying to steal her sterling silver candlesticks and several pieces of silverware. So I did not see my aunt again until my grandparents invited her to Christmas when I was around 14 or 15. All of the siblings were furious at my grandparents and I remember it being extremely tense. It had been so long since I saw my aunt that it was surreal seeing her walk through the door. She looked so much like my mom, it kind of stung in a weird way. It's hard to describe it because she looked like family but didn't feel like family, and my brain just couldn't comprehend the situation at the time. When I saw her the second time, she seemed to be in a better place and had a boyfriend with her. I think they might have gotten married, but I can't remember. She lives on the other side of the country now and I haven't seen her since. I do remember a few years ago that my mom found out my aunt was trying to become a foster parent, and I think she might have called the appropriate authorities and told them about my aunt's drug problems. My mom never talks about her sister. It's really sad. I can't imagine loving someone and growing up with someone and sharing a life with them only to become strangers. From what little I've heard of my aunt, she was supposedly extremely funny and had lots of friends. The only stories I ever hear about her are from when she was in high school. I think she might have acted in some plays too. That's about it. TLDR. My mom has a sister I've only met twice. She's a drug addict who steals from her family. It's odd and sad. Dang. Drug addiction can really make messed up people so much worse. It wasn't permanent, but I cut contact with my father for about 5 years as a teen. He got with a shrew of a woman who tried to drive us apart. He tried to forbid me from talking to my former stepmother, who had been great to me since I was 5. He held my phone service hostage, which left me stranded a few times. And he said I was abusive when I was 16. There were other more minor things, but it all added up to be more trouble than it was worth. Eventually, the whole marriage with the shrew fell apart and he realized what he'd been. I would have stayed no contact forever, but he came to me and earnestly apologized and did everything he could to make things right. A couple years ago he was dating someone with a kid and actually asked if it made me uncomfortable seeing him do the things that he missed out on doing with me when I was little. I was touched that it would occur to him that I might feel that way, even though I didn't. I'm glad it didn't have to be permanent, but I'm also glad that I stuck to my guns until I got the genuine apology and attempts to repair the damage that I deserved from him. The fact that it occurred to him and he was bold enough to speak about it is a testament to his desire to change. I respect that. Glad to see a happy ending in this comment section of misery. P. My immediate family, myself, brother and parents, have cut off all contact with most of my mom's side of the family. We used to help everyone out with money. My mom is a business owner and my dad has a decent career. We have the biggest house and used to hold all the birthdays and holiday parties at our house. Then sometime, we just got tired of being used and we were actually blacklisted by them. People think just because your family owns a business you have unlimited money. It hurts my mom because she was from a big family and I miss having holidays with 20 people or so in the house. People just think because you're family that you should bend over backwards for them. We are much happier with our small family holidays and birthdays. No more drama. I've been through some very similar stuff, friend. The last sentence is so true. About 4 or 5 months after not talking to one side of the family, I noticed a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Stopped talking to my drug addict brother for a few years for sleeping with a couple of my girlfriends. My parents begged me to reconsider. I recently, 6 months ago, stopped talking to my parents after 10 years of very little contact. About a year ago, my father emailed me to ask why I seemed so combative with them, particularly my mother, and at the time I told him I didn't feel ready to respond. But I took my anger over that email and channeled it into writing an 8-page letter to him that I sat on for several months. Finally, I sent it, blocked their numbers and emails, and I have never felt so much relief. I still have contact with my brother, and I'm sure he is giving updates on me, but that doesn't bother me. I no longer need to dread their calls. I just feel disaffected by them now, as if they are strangers, which is how they've always felt to me anyway. It's liberating to not have to care. I refuse to talk to my maternal uncle ever again, because he dumped my paternal grandpa's ashes in the trash. In context, my dad had been taking care of my uncle's parents, my maternal grandparents, for 7 years before they died, and he still did that crap. There's a special place in heck for him. My stepmother. First, she essentially abandoned her dog when she met my father, and I took care of him. A year later she decides she wants him back. I pushed back, of course, and that's when she started manipulating my father against me, lying, accusing me of things I didn't do, and orchestrating many fights between him and I. I packed my crap and left, and I've finally gotten through to my father and opened his eyes to her manipulation. But I miss that dog. I have no intention of seeing or talking to her ever again. Frick her. I haven't really cut off anybody, but I have stopped engaging with my parents and my brother. I don't talk to them anymore unless they talk to me first, which isn't too often. So I guess it's semi-permanent. My parents, because they were constantly in my wife and I's business. Where's our grandkids? And then they became super mega Trumpsters to the point where anytime I talk to them it becomes a conversation about how me being an independent who leans slightly left is basically new age terrorism that is tearing the family apart. And I stopped talking to my brother after bailing him out of trouble time and again only for him to quit his job on bad terms, refuse to find another one and then buy 3 Xbox One X's whilst unemployed. I fully expect him to come begging for a place to live when he gets evicted for failing to pay rent in about a month's time, and I'm going to kick him out onto the street. It's probably going to be the hardest thing I'll ever have to do to another human being, but I can't keep fixing his life only for him to wreck it again. Proud of you for being able to do that. The short version is she kept my younger sister from my father and I for nearly a decade. She's currently awaiting trial for the murder of her third husband. I stopped talking to my mother 10 years ago. She wasn't the best. Always put my sister and I in bad situations. At the time I was okay with cutting her out, but then I started wanting to know more about her and her family. You know, just regular stuff that kids should know about their parents. Found out she died a few years ago from cancer. I regret it. Oh crap dude. My condolences to you and your family. See. Cut my father out of my life following my parents' separation, as there was no reason to pretend we had a relationship once mom left him. I still feel some guilt, but considering he brought nothing but self-doubt, objectification, sexism, violence and emotional abuse to the table, I feel my life is improved without him. The day I quit putting up with his balls and decided to move out, I caught him kicking the dog because it was barking too much. I guess in my head I was like, humans can stand up for themselves, but a dog? Come on. I was never really close to my extended families. Couldn't point them out of a lineup. I have no idea where any of them live, aside from just the states that they live in. I have Facebook friends with some of them, but I have made zero effort to speak to any of them. They have made zero effort to talk to me. I have stopped talking to my sister and make zero effort to talk to her. She's a very toxic individual. Last year she was arrested for failure to appear in court following a traffic ticket. I bailed her out, made the mistake of not asking for collateral before bailing her out. She had the money and told me that there were other people to pay back before she could even consider paying me back. The whole "you're out of jail because of me" never occurred to her. Last time we spoke she said that she shouldn't have had to pay me back because I didn't deserve it. We're both in our late 30s. She still treats me like I'm a kid, speaks to me like I am a kid, and she still complains about aggression from childhood. On Facebook she's blaming me for everything wrong in her life. Claims that she's staying in an abusive marriage for over 16 years because when we were kids I hit her. She hit me. Kids fight. But lucky me, I have a little sister who not only doesn't understand that but blames everything wrong in her life on that. Blames every bad choice she's made in her life on that. Has actively destroyed friendships and relationships that I have made because she believes that I don't deserve to be happy in life because of stuff done before I was 10 years old. My sister, last time we were together, at my mom's place, used the phrase "my dad says that," and I said, "Don't you mean our dad or just dad?" and she got angry at me, telling me that she said it right, that I shouldn't consider our parents my parents because I am just an butthole, until she gets the needed therapy that she needs. I'm not going to associate with her. I don't need to be blamed for stuff that happened decades ago causing her fricked up life now. I don't need to have someone actively destroy every relationship that I am in or working on because she doesn't want me to be happy or better off than she is. And worst part is, if I even try to defend myself or tell her to shut up, then she be to her friends, our parents, to Facebook that I am causing stuff, that I am attacking her. Just gonna throw out that both my brother and myself, I'm 13 years younger than him, say my mom, but I think that's a habit of not really having a brother our my age. My dad was pretty crap at being a dad in almost every conceivable way. He died probably a decade ago or so, not sure. Anyway, his side of the family lived far away, so we saw them regularly but not often. When my dad died, they held a funeral for him and didn't invite me or my brother. We were pretty unsettled and annoyed but moved on. I was looking to move to the area they lived in, so I told my paternal grandmother if she happened to be looking for a boarder or anything, since she lived alone, I would be happy to pay for a room or sleep out. One of my dad's sisters stopped me as I was getting on a train and told me that trying to grab a room and money off my grandmother was abhorrent and that I was pretty much a stranger to them, and why did I think that was an appropriate thing to do? They'd clearly circle jerked themselves into a gossip frenzy like they always did. They then collectively removed my mother and I from Facebook, and I have not spoken a word to any of them in a good 6 years. I'm so glad my baby won't have to endure having their last name like I do. Father cheated on mom. He showed up at our home with a van and friends to take stuff. My brother answered the door and was physically assaulted. Had his $2,000 computer stolen. Brother and I cut ties with him completely. I still remember him leaving a voicemail on my phone years ago crying and apologizing for his actions. Still went to his funeral almost 2 years ago. His girlfriend was shocked to see me there. Yeah, I stopped talking to my mom. She neglected me her whole life and only focused on my 2 older brothers, which were clearly her favorite. I was always her last thought, no matter how hard I tried. I always had to beg her to pay attention to me. After moving to a different state 4 years ago and starting my life over, she stopped calling me. I would always have to make the first move. She started drinking more, hanging out with people who made bad choices, and married a guy just like the last guy she divorced. She had no structure or consistency as a human. She would post on Facebook about how much weed she smoked or how much alcohol she bought, and I came to realize I would never want my future children around someone like her. I was flying back into my hometown and had a 2-hour layover and asked her if she wanted to see me during that time. After not seeing your daughter for 3 years, you think she would say yes. But instead, she called me a brat and told me she didn't want me to grace her with my presence. After that conversation, I completely and 100% told her I will never speak to her again. If someone is going to take my attempt at seeing them as an inconvenience for them, I don't want to be a part of that person's life. I don't care if you're my mom or a friend. I cut negative people out of my life faster than a bat out a heck. Sorry, mom. I stopped speaking to both of my brothers because of their drug addictions. In May, my youngest brother died of a H overdose and I have horrible guilt over it. I speak to my other brother every day now and am trying to help him overcome his addiction. People suffering from addiction need good people in their lives to make them remember everything they are missing. It's so hard seeing them be someone completely different, but if you keep him focused and active, one day you will have your brother back. I wish you and your brother the best. I live across the country from most of my family. One of my first cousins got married somewhere very close to me and I was the only one in our family who wasn't invited. Hurt my feelings deeply. Family tried to explain it away with a bunch of bulls. People much less close to them were invited. Any excuse they tried to give me felt like bulls. I don't know why they don't like me, but I no longer want anything to do with them. I've cut off my cousin and his siblings and their parents. It makes me very sad. My older sister. It makes me sad when I think about it. We grew up in an abusive family, so I didn't get to see her often. We are complete opposites. I'm more girly and she's more tomboy. I really tried to have a close relationship with her, but she would judge me for everything I do. How I dress, who I hang out with, how I spend my money, my hobbies, etc. Once I moved out for university, we never spoke. She has never replied to my messages and even blocked me on all social media. My birthday was last month and she didn't even send me a simple text. I've come to accept that this is something that will likely be permanent. Textbook example of envy. Yes, my whole family stopped talking to my grandmother after she disowned my brother for being gay. She's always been pretty crappy to my mom, but that was the last straw. I had an uncle with lifelong drug and alcohol problems. Couldn't hold a job and couch surfed most of his adult life. Mooched off family including my broke single mom. It was confusing because he was such a likable person and we had some great talks over the years. But such a leech. He helped take care of my grandpa, lived off my grandpa for the last few months of his life. We were sitting with my grandpa as he took his last breaths. Literally within a minute of my grandpa dying, he began disrespecting his home. Smoking inside, which my grandpa didn't like. Went on to abuse his hospice medications. Try to sell all of my grandpa's possessions and trash his house. That was the end for me and I never spoke to him again. My uncle died 7 or 8 years later and I just felt nothing really. Yes, my uncle. He is the last person alive on my dad's side of the family and is still stuck in his old ways. Severe hoarding due to loss in many family members and overall general toxicity. Things were fine for a while after my dad died until the uncle started getting back into old toxic patterns, guilting me for getting rid of a lot of my dad's stuff, meanwhile refusing to come see my dad's house as we progressed in renovations. I felt really bad for him and I still do feel bad that neither my brother or I talked to him, but I think he is dealing with many problems that I just can't be a part of, and unfortunately I had to go no contact. I no longer have a brother. He decided that because my mom is battling depression she should not see her grandkids, the one thing that brings her happiness. She only gets to see them when she goes with my father. She offered to babysit when they had to run errands, and he told her she will never see those kids without him and his wife present. He makes it seem like my mom was a bad caretaker for him growing up, when she gave us everything. He also stated that because me and my wife work at night, we are not contributing members of society. I just can't find the logic in the last sentence. What does he mean? My uncle hired him to remodel our new home and he ran off with all of our savings and hardly any work done. House still isn't close to being done. Was born and raised in a Christian cult. A lot of my brothers and my cousins and aunts uncles stopped talking to me when I came out as an atheist. In 2011, my dad wrote me and said he was taking a break from his marriage after fricking just emailing my mom. Didn't have the decency to tell her to her face after 37 years. He assured me it wasn't another woman. Guess what? It was another woman. And that was the end of that relationship with my dad. Yep, several. Haven't talked to either of my parents or half of my dad's side in 7 years. Dad was an alcoholic who used to beat and berate me. I went to court when I was 13 and stopped visitation with him. My parents divorced when I was 3. Only saw him on holidays after that. Called him up after I got married and told him that I was no longer a Smith and would no longer have any contact with him. I was 18. Half of his family enables his behavior, so I ditched them. 2. My mom has borderline personality disorder and refuses to take her meds or get any help, and I also stopped talking to her when I was 18. Started dating my now husband, moved out of her house overnight and closed all of our joint accounts together. A month after that we eloped. A month after I got married, she married a guy I only met once. I have seen her on a couple of occasions. Grandma's funeral, Papa's heart attack. But I act like she isn't even there and won't respond to her when she tries to talk to me. Some think it's harsh, but they don't know what it's like having been abandoned by her multiple times when her boyfriends didn't want a kid around. Her drug of choice was men. I'm positive that both of my parents will die alone. I haven't spoken to my mother in almost a year. finally called her out on childhood abuse after she tried to ruin my wedding. Rather than discuss our issues, she said she wouldn't bother me again and is waiting for an apology, so frick it. Bye Felicia. That also means 2 of my 3 siblings won't speak to me either. My father, he convinced my mother to go along with him when he decided that his 17-year-old son was no longer deserving of their love because he was gay. It's been 20 years. My aunt. 1. Her stepnephew, or niece, was the getaway driver for a robbery which took place a few years ago that made national headlines. She refused to report them to the police and the person got away with it. 2. She slithered back from Nevada to California after my grandmother on my mom's side had a massive stroke and needed home care. We all knew what she wanted, my grandma's attention, so she could wait for her to die and get whatever inheritance money she could for herself and her crap butt kids. She took my grandma to Nevada without warning and has kept her there since, going so far as to give us fake phone numbers, addresses that are vacant, and telling her we don't love or care about her to keep us out of the picture. I have tried so hard to reach my grandma these past few months, but the gold digger is getting her further and further away from us. I know how that feels, man. Except instead of the gold digger robbing family, the bee has no family ties to us, at all. I haven't spoken to my dad in about 3 years. I just got really fed up with the constant verbal and emotional abuse from his end, as well as his constant need to try to micromanage everything I did. I changed my number, email, and moved a few hours away to a new city to get a fresh start, and I haven't looked back since. He has never tried to reach out to me, even though he can most likely access my new contact information through both of my sisters, who are still very much under his control. I definitely think going no contact has been one of the best things I've ever done for myself. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.